Isn't it interesting how the real life Rebel Alliance is condemned as terrorist, and the media pushes anyone that resists U.S. hegemony as terrorist? Isn't it funny how in the movies, like, America is usually portrayed as the bastion of good or the underdogs, which is fucking nonsense. Anyone that knows anything about history, like, Americans will gladly cheer on the rebellion in Star Wars, but will condemn an actual rebellion that's happening in real time, like the Viet Cong or the Viet Minh, which is what they actually are called, or the Hezbollah, Hamas. We're supposed to condemn them as terrorists, yet they are the actual real life rebellion. And the real life empire, which is America, we are supposed to cheer them on uncritically. It's just the fiction and the reality. All of our lives, and I'm speaking from the American perspective and the American experience, we are raised with nonsensical propaganda about us being the underdog. In fact, Americans themselves love underdog stories, yet in the real world, when the actual underdogs are fighting against a all-powerful empire like America that's destroying, like, the people's lives in their countries, they condemn them and call them terrorists. Or if they do give any support, they just are very passive about it and don't actually demand anything. That's America in a nutshell. Like, the many lies that our country basically feeds us about America and the underdog. Because the American reality versus the fiction is a freaking completely night and day. Like, how the hell can a country that's built on genocide and imperial conquest be in any way the underdog? It doesn't make any sense. But we love those kind of stories. The American Revolution, in a way, we were kind of the underdogs in that conflict, if we're going by the American context. But have we been through most of our country's history in reality? Of course not. But then again, even the American Revolution, it's debatable if we were even the underdogs in that conflict. Because what were the motivations for the American Revolution? It wasn't independence for Britain for any reason other than taxes and property rights. That's essentially what it is. An entire war being waged just for the right to keep slaves, only for a war to happen half a century afterwards for slavery to be abolished anyway. So how in any world is America the underdog? We'll gladly cheer on Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, the rebel hero that took down the Death Star, yet we will not actually root for any of the real life equivalents to Luke Skywalker. We always condemn them. We always say they're terrorists or they're Islamic jihadists. The real Luke Skywalkers are condemned, but the ones in fiction are celebrated, because it's easy to root for a underdog in a fictional story because there is no personal stakes in it, because it's just a story. But in the real world, rooting for the underdog could have consequences. And that just shows you the lie of the underdog. If we truly were the underdogs and we truly supported them, why don't we support the actual underdogs? And why are the underdogs, why are they always condemned? Why are they always, like, think about it. Back when Martin Luther King was alive, he was hated by the entire establishment pretty much. And when he went a little bit further than they wanted to, because they would rather deal with Martin Luther King than Malcolm X, they killed him. So how is it that the underdogs, the actual underdogs, they are not ever celebrated in their lifetime, but they're celebrated after they're dead, because it's easier to co-opt their message and just basically pick and choose what to push onto these, like, people after their death. So it's just because they're more marketable. The Martin Luther King, the real king, is not marketable to America. he was an underdog. Regardless, I prefer Malcolm X because I think Malcolm X spoke more truth to power, but it doesn't change the fact that Martin Luther King was an underdog. Yet he was condemned as an anti-American. He was considered a terrorist. So why is it that the real underdogs, the actual heroes, the real life rebellions, the real Luke Skywalkers, why are they not celebrated? Of course, it's an easy question to answer, but I'm just asking rhetorically. Americans love the underdogs so much. They will gladly cheer them on in movies and books and comics and video games. But when push comes to shove, when the real life underdogs actually emerge, the real Luke Skywalkers, the real Leias, the real Han Solos, the real Mon Mothmas, like the people that actually exist in the real world, their equivalents, they are treated as terrorists. They're condemned as terrorists. They are scoffed at as, terrorists. Yeah, but why is it so? Okay. I know I'm being rhetorical. Maybe I'm being too logical, but seriously, the underdogs, the actual underdogs in film and movies and video games and books, we can celebrate them because it's easy to do so. But when you actually have to show your support, whether it's like doing a video like I'm doing, like showing your support, or doing it through other means, financial means, there's an actual risk. Like putting truth to power and actually supporting the actual underdogs takes far more effort than supporting the underdogs and works of fiction. I just find it interesting just how America has an underdog culture. We love to support the underdogs, yet we don't support the real underdogs. Like, let's be real. The real reason Trump won because he seemed to be the underdog. Oh, here's this guy fighting against the establishment. The whole establishment is against him. And I feel like if we didn't have this underdog culture in America and the worship of the underdog, I feel like Trump would not be able to actually have support because that's what Trump looked like. If you don't know anything about politics and you have a surface level understanding, Trump does look like the underdog if you don't understand how politics actually works. Because when you compare the kind of people that supported Harris and Biden and Trump, he does come off as the underdog in a way. And Americans in particular, they voted for Trump because they thought they saw themselves into Trump, because they themselves think that they're the underdogs and they see Trump as the underdog. And Trump is nothing like, he doesn't even actually compare to any underdogs. He isn't. He's a billionaire. He has never known any hardship in his life. But because America has this culture of thinking themselves as the underdogs and attach themselves to somebody that the system seems to be against, and Trump understood this, and he may be dumb, but when it comes to emotional intelligence, I think Trump is smart. When it comes to like everything else, he's just stupid. And I think this is the reason why Democrats lost the election, because the Democrats don't understand American culture. They don't understand what makes America what it is. Is America, whether you want to admit it or not, and I'm saying this for those to my comrades that hate this country, we got to understand that Americans, even like the most pieces of shit out there, and also well-meaning, they want to see themselves as the underdog. And I'm just going to be real. The only true underdogs in our society are the indigenous and black people and immigrants. Those who have no power whatsoever. They are the underdogs in society. I may be in the disenfranchised class, but because my whiteness, I wouldn't really be an underdog compared to somebody else who would be in the same position as I am. Like if I was black, I would be an underdog because I would not have the power like I do because I'm white. I can go to any Social Security office and I'm suffering through trouble. I'm more likely to be listened to. I'm more likely to be helped than if I were black. I feel like we need to really reevaluate the underdog narrative, because I feel like that is what kept America, the propaganda, strong. It made it seem like communism was this big threat to the entire world, because America is like the one country that it pushed the underdog narrative the most, and it still does to this day. But what happens when the underdog narrative collapses? Because that is one of the few things that does keep America together. Like in our literature, in our art, underdogs are extremely popular. Underdog stories of fighting against overwhelming odds. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in other cultures, but America especially sees themselves and attaches themselves to the underdogs more than anything. I think that's something worth considering. Anyway, I just wanted to get my thoughts out quickly before I clocked in for my shift. Peace out, everyone, and tell me what you think.